Hello YouTube, this is Callum from English Shooting, and I just wanted to make this video basically to clarify exactly what you need to do when buying and selling a gun within the UK. So obviously you've got your licenses, you've picked out the gun, you've struck the deal, agreed a price, and you've exchanged the money, and you now want to sign that gun onto your certificate. Well, that is the first step that you need to take, and it doesn't matter if it's a individual person or an RFD, the process is exactly the same. Shotgun certificates and firearms vary a little bit. There's a few caveats for the firearms, but I'll get onto that in a second. So the normal procedure is that the person that you're buying it from will sign it onto your certificate. You don't normally do that yourself. Now, what they have to do is put the make, model and serial number of that gun, they have to put the date of the sale, they have to then put their name, address and certificate number, and then sign it off to say that they have sold that gun to you. And again, it doesn't matter, the RFD will do that or the individual person will do that. Now, the main important thing is to get as much detail as possible and keep that for yourself. So you need to know their address, their certificate number, their name, and the date of sale. Just try and write that down separately, because you need to send that off to your local firearms department, your local county firearms department, to notify them that you've bought that gun. Again, it doesn't matter if it's an individual person or a local RFD, you have to notify the firearms department. And again, you basically need to tell them all the details that you've just put, or they've just put on your certificate. You need to tell them that you are now in possession of that gun and you have bought it. Doesn't matter if it's a firearm or a shotgun, you need to tell them. And you send off a letter, and that should be done within 5 working days. Selling a gun is pretty much the reverse process. Obviously, if someone comes to buy a gun from you or you sell it off to an RFD, the RFD, it's slightly different because you don't need to sign it onto their certificate. They will just give you a receipt and they will sign it onto their system. For a individual person, what you need to do is make sure that you sign it on to their certificate, because until it's on their certificate, you're still responsible for it. Once you've signed it on, you've sold it, they're now in possession of it, they're responsible for it, and you're in the clear. So again, you sign on the same details as if someone was signing it onto yours. You need to put down the make, model and serial number, your certificate number, name, address, date, and then sign it. Now, they are obviously then going to have to send off those details to their local firearms department, but you as the seller need to send off those details. So going back to actually buying a gun, the buyer is going to need all those details as well, because they need to notify it when they're selling it to you. They need to notify their local firearms department, and then when obviously you then come to sell a gun, you need to do the exact same. With the RFD, they need to do it as well. It's more of an automated system, but basically everyone needs to tell everyone what's going on. Both sides, selling and buying, you need to tell your local firearms department whenever you change or sell or buy a gun. You need to keep them in the loop, because it's all about keeping track of who is in possession of what and who is responsible for what. If you don't tell them and that gun's then used in a robbery or it's lost, then it could come back on you because you haven't technically declared that you're no longer responsible for it. So it's just important to get as much detail as possible. Now, the caveats for firearms, you may know that with shotgun licenses, you can buy and sell pretty much as many as you can hold, and there's no restriction. You can just buy and sell, buy and sell, buy and sell. With a firearms license, you obviously have specific slots. Now, the caveat is once you've sold a gun, recently I sold my Seiko 22 bolt action, and for that gun I had a slot. I filled that slot with the Seiko quad, the 22 long rifle slot, and that slot has then been used up. You can't then sell that gun and go and buy another one on that same slot. You have to do what they call a 1-for-1 variation. So a 1-for-1 variation is basically you going to your local firearms department and going, look, you gave me permission to own one of these guns. You gave me the slot originally. I filled that slot. I'm going for a different gun, but I still have the same need for that gun. What you need to do is basically put that slot back on my license, a nice clean one that I can then go and fill. You can't, as I said, you can't just sell it and then fill it automatically, because once you've filled a slot, that's been used. You then have to reapply for one if you then sell it. As long as you stay by that, you shouldn't have any problems. And it's a fairly simple process. It says everything on the certificates. Basically, all the information that needs to be put on the certificate is the information that you need to send away, but it is vitally important that you do send it away. As I said, it's just about retaining as much information as possible about, both the seller or buyer, depending on what situation you're in, and telling your local firearms department and letting them know. It doesn't matter if you're buying or selling, you have to notify them. And within the shooting community, a lot of people have sold guns countless times, and most people will know what they're doing. So if you're selling or you're buying and you don't feel comfortable, just tell them that. Just say, I'm not 100% sure, would you mind going through this with me? With an RFD, it is slightly easier because obviously they do this day in, day out. They know the rules like the back of their hand, and they just do it with no effort at all. My local RFD, Portsmouth Gun Centre, they actually give me a slip. They print off a slip, and well, they print off two, and basically that's their copy that they're going to send off to the local firearms department, because an RFD need to notify them as well when they've sold a gun, and they give me a slip and basically say, like, look, you don't need to write anything, these are all the details, you literally put that in a stamped envelope addressed to your local firearms department, and that's all you need to do. Some RFDs don't do this, but it's still important that you notify your local firearms department. And again, it's just the name of the gun shop that you've bought it from, their RFD number and their address, and you just say, I bought it from Portsmouth Gun Centre on this date, it's this gun serial number, and you're going to be fine. It's really not a complicated process, it's really simple. Most people know what they're doing anyway, but I hope this video may have cleared it up or may have been interesting if you're just sort of interested in the UK gun laws and how the procedures work. Thank you very much for watching it, and I hope to see you soon.